The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
I want to bring enough awareness to all these social issues to show that basketball can be a cure. It can be a help. Basketball can bring anybody together, whatever race, creed, color, whatever the case may be.
Tremaine Dalton is the founder of The Process Basketball, providing high-level training to European and American players. His mission also includes philanthropic work throughout the world in Europe, Central America, Australia, and here in the United States. The Process Basketball is focused on making a difference by connecting communities and building relationships across the globe with basketball. Tremaine runs youth camps and clinics all over the world with the goal of impacting young people's lives on and off the court. Tremaine played his college basketball at the University of St. Mary's and later went on to play professionally in Israel and France before finishing his career in Australia. Hey Hoopheads, transform your training this April with our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market. Get $1,500 off any new machine in the month of April. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Visit drdish.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Chris Meadows, player development coach and author of the book I Am D1, and you are listening to the Hoop Heads Podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. If you're looking to improve your coaching, please consider joining the Hoopheads Mentorship Program. We believe that having a mentor is the best way to maximize your potential and become a transformational coach. By matching you up with one of our experienced mentors, you'll develop a one-on-one relationship that will help your coaching, your team, your program, and your mindset. The Hoopheads Mentorship Program delivers mentoring services to basketball coaches at all levels through our team of experienced head coaches. Find out more at hoopheadspod.com or shoot me an email directly, mike@hoopheadspod.com. Follow us on social media at hoopheadspod on Twitter and Instagram, and be sure to check out the Hoopheads Podcast Network for more great basketball content. Coaches, do you have a point guard or leader you're going to be counting on next season to run the show for you? Don't leave next season to chance. Thousands of coaches send their players to a point guard college camp each summer to learn to think the game, lead a team, and run the show. Your players will be smarter, better leaders, and better equipped to foster a championship culture next season in practice and in your locker room. I've seen firsthand how PGC camps have had a huge impact on players and coaches that I know, both on and off the court. You can go to pgcbasketball.com to find a 5-day, 4-night camp near you. That's pgcbasketball.com. Grab a notebook and pen as you listen to this episode with Tremaine Dalton from The Process Basketball. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, but I am pleased to be joined by Tremaine Dalton from The Process Basketball. Tremaine, welcome to the Hoopheads Pod.
How you doing? Everything's good.
Everything is good here. Glad to have you on. Excited to be able to dive in with you, learn a little bit more about what you're doing in the game of basketball, what you've done, and the impact that you're trying to make through your Process Basketball. So
thank you so
let's
much.
Start by going, why don't we do this? Why don't you give us just a quick Give us the 1-minute elevator pitch on the process basketball so people kind of have some context, and then we'll jump into how you got in the game when you were younger.
For sure. The process basketball is actually one of the top basketball programs in the world. And it's not because of the clients who we train, but it's also because we connect those clients with philanthropy. One of my clients, I know a lot of people know him, James Young. He played for Kentucky, got picked up by the Boston Celtics. And, he had his off-the-court issues or whatever. But once he got with the process basketball, he ended up signing with the Knicks last year. And an example of how our philanthropy connected with him is he's from Michigan. I'm originally from Michigan, and I do a gun violence program every year in Michigan. And his affiliation with the high-level philanthropy that we do around the world makes players look like good guys. It makes them look like they're more than basketball. So, I've done a lot of philanthropy at the highest levels with the United States government. We got a project coming up with one of Oprah and Prince Harry's programs out in Greece, helping Syrian refugees. And with the training side, we got players who are at the Olympic level. Matthias Lazor, he French national team, and they was in the Tokyo Olympics, silver medalist. And a lot of other Khalees Lloyd, we got a big women's initiative. And that's what the process is, man. It's away from social media and all that. We one of the top programs in the world.
And we are going to work our way to dive into more detail about what Tremaine just talked about. But we're going to start by telling his entire story. So let's go back in time to when you were a kid. You're growing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Tell us a little bit about your first introduction to the game, what you remember about it.
Well, to get right to it, man, basketball just pretty much saved my life. My stepfather, he was involved in, I don't want to put him out there like that, but he was involved in criminal activity. And, he got 17 years in prison. So me playing basketball just pretty much kept me off the streets. And because of some of his activity, it would bring trouble our way. And rather than me hiding in the house, I would go to all the rival parks and I would go after whoever the biggest, baddest dude was. And, my thing is one-on-one anyway. So, whoever was at these different parks, these different neighborhoods, I would go at these people and I would earn the respect in these neighborhoods. And it would just, you could kind of say it would keep people away from my home. I got 3 little brothers, so it would keep people away from all that negative energy away from them because of the respect I had with basketball on the streets. My intention was never to go to the NBA or nothing like that. I just felt I got my validation from my neighborhood. And that was good enough for me, and then the rest just came, I mean, because when you have pressure, when you have that type of pressure, people don't understand what it is sometimes coming from the hood or just different neighborhoods and stuff like that. And that's enough pressure in itself. You got to worry about robberies and drugs and all types of stuff. Playing basketball is a breeze, you know what I'm saying? So it's just putting the ball in the hole. So once I got that validation, the rest of it was cake.
When did you know one-on-one was going to be your game?
I just used to give everybody buckets. You know what I'm saying? Because, another thing was when I was a kid, I used to bet people $100, right? And I say, I'll spot them 9 points. And then I say, for this 100, if you get, all you got to do is score 1, you get the 100. If I score all 10, I get the 100. And, once I got the ball, it was all 10, So that really was my path, man. In high school, middle school and stuff like that, like I just every day used to go to different rival parks. I used to see some of these people, different neighborhoods and stuff, and it just kept me out of trouble, kept my family out of trouble and stuff like that.
So when you're thinking about how you grew up in the game, where you're playing on the playground and you're learning on your own, you're not working with a trainer, you're not working with a coach, you're just out there playing ball, trying to figure it out for yourself and beating dudes all over the place. Right. So when you're doing that, how do you think about the way that basketball is today, and how do you approach that, or maybe use what you learned as a kid in your approach to training? Right.
So you have a lot of trainers who monetize the game. In this generation, it's a lot of analytics and stuff like that, or you monetize it through social media and everything like that. And my training, it doesn't rely on social media at all. It just relies on the pure essence of basketball, and I think that's what's been missing lately. I just teach killer instinct. So let's say if I'm in Europe, I keep my same 10 to 12 clients every year. And all these clients, especially my top level clients, are the superstars in their country. And that's all I train. So, I fulfilled a niche in Europe. At the time when I first started the process basketball, Europeans wanted to learn that isolation game. They wanted to learn that skill set. And lo and behold, Europe is actually catching up in terms of talent-wise, because, you got a lot of African communities all throughout Europe, Australia, and this, that, and the other. So you do have a number, a different pool of athletes in this time and generation, but the separation is just the killer instinct. I mean, you got people like Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant, he grew up a little different, but LeBron James, people like that, they grew up more or less like me or even worse. And that killer instinct just comes from who they are. Not to say other environments aren't like that, but it's just different as a whole. And that is what really separates us from everybody else. So when I train my athletes, that's all I'm teaching. When I go to Europe, it's not, we got one ball, we got the rim, and I'm teaching them how to be killers. And not to mention, I got to play all my players anyway. So, you know what I'm saying? So when I'm beating them, in their mind, they like, damn, like, why is my trainer beating me? I'm not the quickest, I'm not the fastest. I'm definitely not in shape like I used to be, but I'm an animal. Like, I am a monster when it comes to me winning, like when it comes to one-on-one, because I understand that with basketball, it is a lot of ego in it, especially with players making millions and millions of dollars. And to really crack that ego, you just got to crack their heads open.
So what does that look like on the ground when you're trying to teach a player killer instinct? Because I think a lot of times the perception would be that some guys have that, some guys don't. Maybe you can learn it to a certain degree, but I think the perception is either you got it or you don't. So when you're working with a guy, what does it look like? What are things that you're doing, saying, getting them to think about that's going to help them develop that same killer instinct that you developed on the playground?
Right. Well, just to get straight to it, a lot of my athletes, we got personal relationships. So I have the opportunity to tell them the truth. I mean, you come across different coaches, trainers, or whatever, they're affiliated with a player just because of their status. But, I got my own status in this game. I got my own personality. I am who I am. So I tell these players the truth no matter what it is. So when I'm training a player, if they messing up, I tell them they messing up. And I'm getting in their face and I'm letting them know. And, I'm taking the whole Bruce Lee standpoint. Like, if they don't understand it, I'm going to prove it to you. So that's the approach I'm taking from the beginning. And in basketball, it don't require a bunch of dribbling. It don't require that. It's just all you need is, if you really believe in your bucket, and defense too, but if you really believe in your ability to score, it just takes 3 dribbles. And what I teach is moments as well. It's not about just necessarily shooting the ball, scoring every time. I teach these players specific moments. Just to break it down, like if you got a game and you got 4 quarters, if you get 5 points a quarter, you average 20 points minimum, and everything else is extras. So if you tell a player, okay, if it's strong suit is shooting a 3 and his other strong shoot is a mid-range pull-up, I say, hey, hit that 3-pointer, hit that mid-range, you got 5 points. Then everything else, you can distribute the ball, and we're going to work on those moments over and over and over and over again. And averaging 20 points in Europe is huge. So, communicating that type of energy and that fury, it put me in a position to have 100% success rate. Like, all my clients are succeeding.
That ability to tell players the truth, I think, is something that a lot of young coaches, I think, sometimes struggle with. And you hear from trainers as well that, because, as you said, trainers are trying to monetize the game. They're trying to monetize their business.
Right. That
a lot of times they're afraid to tell a player the truth. Now you're working with higher level players. A lot of trainers maybe don't have the opportunity to work with that level of players. So maybe they're working with a kid who's in 8th or 9th grade. Well, if I tell that kid the truth, maybe mom or dad takes their business down the road to somebody else.
Right.
And now my training business goes away. So what advice would you have for somebody who's in that situation as a trainer, maybe somebody who wants to be better, who wants to have the kind of impact that you're having on your players, who wants to really see them get better, which is ultimately how you build a training business, that you can prove that your players are getting better. So what advice do you have for somebody who maybe has a little bit of a hard time having that honest conversation with their clients?
Well, first and foremost, you just got to have the confidence to have that honest conversation. Don't make it about the love, because, a lot of players, they get a hold of NBA players, and it's exactly what you said. They're afraid of telling that athlete the truth because of their status. But you have to look at yourself in the mirror and you have to say, am I really trying to teach somebody? Sometimes I turn down NBA clients because at the end of the day, what can I teach MVPs and stuff like that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what can I really teach this individual? Like, and I'm real with myself. I feel like I'm a liaison or I'm a transition point with players like James Young or David Michinu or Matthias Lazor. I'm that transition point for them to get to the NBA. And once they get to the NBA, it's out of my hands. And just keep it real with yourself. You know, I know when I look in the mirror, I know I can be a point guard coach. I can be a 2-guard coach, but I'm a killer coach, and that's my lane. And I'm keeping that truth to myself. And because I'm an expert in that specialty, I have it gives me that opportunity to tell a player the truth. When players come to the process basketball, they say, I want to be a superstar. They say, I want to be the best. And it's invitation only anyway. You know, their agents say, I want to be the best on the team. I want this specific player to maximize all his efficiency levels in every category. And people respect me on that level to the point where it's like, okay, whatever he says, it is what it is, and that's it. So just to give advice, just find your specialty and just keep it real, you know?
When you were playing and you were focused on your playing career, when did coaching, when did the idea of becoming a trainer, when did that get on your radar? When did you start to think about that? Was it while you were early on that you say, hey, someday when my playing career is over, I'd like to get into coaching, I'd like to get into training? Or was it a case of, okay, I see my playing career winding down and man, I still got to be involved in the game. Let me figure out how I can stay involved with the game of basketball. Which one better describes you?
Well, to be honest, it just go back to my origin story, man. It never was about basketball in the first place. Like the actual act of basketball. To me, basketball is a business. I love the game, but I'm more of a horizontal thinker than a vertical thinker. When a vertical thinker is somebody who just says, okay, I need this basketball, then after the basketball, I get here, and then there, I take it there. I'm doing it all concurrently. So I'm coaching. When I was playing overseas, I was working with the Israeli government, doing I was working for the Israeli government as the director of sports and education, or like, let's say when I was in Australia, I was there doing community initiative projects. So within my career, I was already coaching. Within my career, I was already doing business. You know what I'm saying? And it just naturally transitioned. You know, when I was a basketball player, I wasn't saying, oh, I was a basketball player. I was using basketball as a tool for that next stage, you know, and even at the end of my career, like even now I can still play. I'm here in Panama right now, and, you know, I'm working with some of the national team players and stuff. I went to go see one of my players, and a coach asked me, hey, man, why don't you come play in this pro game next week? And I'm out here averaging 27 a game. So that's just basketball for me is it's a business, it's fun. And because I'm already working with the national team players out here and I wanted them to believe in my product, I needed to prove a point. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it worked for me, man. It's just even when I was what made me get that realization of basketball being a business when I was in college. You know, I wasn't in the best situation in college. I went to West Virginia Tech. I didn't have the best coaching staff. You know, I don't want to blame them, but it just didn't work. And I transferred to St. Mary's, and it was the same situation. And I was averaging 20 points a game and only playing half the game, you know, because of an agreement me, the AD, and the coach had. So that's when my efficiency levels just exploded, you know, because I had to get those buckets to prove me. So, yeah, you know.
You had to get your 5 points a quarter and a half, right?
Right, and a half.
You didn't have 4 quarters. You only had 2.
I only had 2. So
right.
In my mind, I'm breaking it down, and I'm already putting a platform together once I get to that next stage in the pros. Because in the pros, you even get less time if you're not a superstar. And, you know, I played a little bit in Israel. I played in France. And I played in Australia. And in the middle of my season, I was like, man, you know what? I know I'm smarter than the coaches that I got. You know, you never – I know what I'm doing. So let me be that guy to teach exactly what needs to be done. And I believe that's the reason why I have the success I have now, because I believe in it.
How did that opportunity to play pro basketball come to you after you get done with college? What does it look like for you? Who are you reaching out to? Who's reaching out to you? What did you go about doing in order to get yourself a pro career coming out of St. Mary's?
Man, it was extremely hard. When I came out of St. Mary's, I had an offer to go to South Korea, and I didn't take it because, you know, I was on the young, I'm going to go to the NBA and this, that, and the other. Just my mind was somewhere else. Even though that wasn't even my ultimate goal, I was thinking of it as I was just thinking of it, okay, that might be my best option. And I had my pre-draft camps, and, you know, I killed, and I did what I needed to do, but I should have took that overseas offer. But after I didn't take that overseas offer, everything went completely downhill for like a year and a half, and I didn't play at all. But then I got lucky, and I played semi-pro. For my first team was the Detroit Hoops, and they picked me up in the playoffs in the ABA, and I dropped 49 my first game. And then after that, I played for the Grand Rapids Flight. I was averaging like 28, 29 a game. Then I took a whole nother and I played in Arizona for the Arizona Raptors. And I was averaging like 30-something a game there too. And then after that, semi-pro, I couldn't break through, getting overseas and stuff like that. So I just stopped playing all over again. And then they had that Red Bull King of the Rock tournament, international one-on-one tournament, and I won it. I was the King of Arizona, and I made it to the Elite 8 internationally. I beat a guy named Dusan Ballou, who was actually the number 1 3-on-3 player in the world. And that's actually what got me overseas, man. And then I went to play in Israel right after that.
Did you have an agent at that point?
Nope. I just went over there myself. I had a couple connections over there. One of the people who I played, he was from Israel. He was like, just come over. And I played in the second league over there. I actually came close to playing against Kobe Bryant. I was a practice player for a team called Maccabi Haifa. Actually, that's when I first met James Young, too. And they used to do NBA tours right in the preseason. And I was a practice player with him. And if I would have made that team, I would have played against Kobe Bryant in his return game when he tore his Achilles. But at the time, I just bet on myself, man. To answer the question, I just bet on myself. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have nothing.
So what was that like, trying to negotiate and get yourself over there and get a contract and get you on a team? How'd you navigate that?
Man, it was hectic. I was calling, I was emailing, I was trying my best to connect. And lo and behold, these same people who I was connecting with back then are my network now. Whether it worked out or not, a lot of the people who helped me out in those times are some of my best friends from all over the world. So it was just me emailing. It was a different time too. This was before social media, So it was really me sending my film out. It was really sending my resume out, calling, and then it just happened. The Red Bull King of the Rock really set it off for me because I was out there cooking. So and at the time, like people like that. People like that whole isolation style. They like it, especially when you're doing it efficiently. So.
No question about that. Yeah. Anybody, hey, you can put the ball in the hole. There's always space for you, right?
Right.
Exactly. Scoring is something that every team needs. The ball, it's a lot easier to win when the ball goes in the basket. There's no question about that.
Exactly.
So you get that set up in Israel, and when do you kind of realize that, hey, I think I can make a go of this. I think I can make it a career. And then to follow up with that, you mentioned earlier about how you're kind of concurrently, you're doing things at the same time. So not only are you working on basketball, but you're also seeing the bigger picture of the impact that you want to be able to have. So when did you feel at least semi-secure in, hey, I can make a career here playing professional basketball overseas? And when did you start to have a greater mission than just, hey, it's more than just basketball? When do you get connected with the Israeli government? When do you start to do things outside of the game that are having an impact?
Right. So when I was over there, my basketball situation wasn't secure at all. So because of my network, because I'm so cool with people, I ended up getting hooked up with a job in an area called Jesse Cohan in the city of Holon, which is a real tough area. And because I used to, even there, I used to go to all the parks. Everybody knew me. I was cooking everybody. But at the end of the day, basketball is a business, and it just wasn't working out the way it was supposed to work out. I didn't go to a big enough school, or I didn't do well enough at a tryout, or whatever the case may be, especially in the first league. But I took advantage of me playing in the second league, and I was like, hey, if I'm here, I'm going to engage myself in the community, and I'm going to connect with people, and I'm going to see what's up. Because at the end of the day, getting that international experience, when you bring it back to the States, it can really help your portfolio or your resume or whatever the case. Practices is only an hour a day, so why not take the opportunity to connect and to honestly say that you work for the Israeli government, helping kids, helping different African communities there, Russian communities and stuff like that. It's an honor for me, so I just took the opportunity and ran with it. And when I started to see the programs that I was involved in when I was there, and the reception that I was getting from the community still being a basketball player, I was like, hey, I just need to keep this going, because you can get hurt tomorrow playing basketball. You can get hurt at any point in time, but what it will always be secure is your network, is what you're doing for communities, it is what you're doing for people. And I just took advantage of what basketball was bringing to me. And it always goes back to my origin story. The fact that me just putting the ball in the hole and going to different parks kept me out of so much trouble And my brother's out of so much trouble, and it has that much influence on people, regardless of what off the court problems people have and the drug game or whatever. I was like, shit, you could take this anywhere. Like, you know what I'm saying? You can take it, you can put it in any scenario, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
How do you feel like culturally making that adjustment from, hey, you're leaving the United States, you grew up in a tough environment, now you're going and you're in a whole new country, whole new culture, and not only are you trying to immerse yourself in the basketball side of it, but you're also trying to immerse yourself in the community side of it and get to know the people there and get to know what you could do to make an impact. So what was it like culturally to go from, hey, I'm in a place where I've been comfortable, where I've grown up my entire life, to now suddenly I'm in a foreign country where things are obviously different, but there's some similarities that you just mentioned in terms of what a community might need. So how did you handle that cultural piece?
Well, man, I'm a chameleon at the end of the day. I can adapt anywhere. You know, for me, I'm the type of guy, wherever I go, you know, I'm gonna connect with the right people, regardless of what the culture is, because I engage myself in the culture. Like I said, a lot of basketball players, man, when they go play overseas, they just sit in their room and play video games. I'm out in the streets. You know, I'm connected with people. I'm going to the parks. I'm talking to the news people. I'm doing all types of stuff, man. And it was easy for me. And, you know, I grew up in Grand Rapids, but I also grew up in Detroit. So it's a lot of things going on in Israel, but it was nothing to me due to the fact that I grew up the way I grew up. Like, you know, for me, it was a blessing. Like, it was just, for me, all this stuff was just so easy to me, man. And it's even the hardest parts of basketball in my career, my ability to pivot and my ability to adapt, it was just easy for me because me being there, that was the opportunity. If I'm walking down the street, let's say in Miami or somewhere, and if I see a Ferrari, due to the fact that that's in my vision, that means I'm supposed to have it. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. So me going to Israel, being in Australia, me living in Paris and all these places, if I'm there, that means it was supposed to exist. That means I'm supposed to be one amongst that culture. And here I am today.
So not only did you play in Israel, but you've also played in France, played in Australia. Which of those three countries, did you have a favorite? And if you did, what was it about one place over the other? And obviously, I'm sure you had good experiences in all of them, but was there one that stood out, one city, maybe a place that you played, that you spent a lot of time that you really enjoyed more than some of the others?
France is my second home, man. Paris. You know, I got commercials out there, man. I'm in Oist France, which is the biggest newspaper out there. I'm in Reverse Magazine, which is one of the biggest magazines out there. You know, the street ball culture, they embrace me every time I come back. You know, I'm working with 4 of their national team players. France is my second home, man. Like every time, you know, I spent New Year's and Christmas out there. You know, I just go out there just cause. You know, for me, that's the best place out of all the places I've ever been anywhere. Australia is cool too because their basketball is really growing at a very exponential rate, especially with LaMelo Ball being there a couple years ago. And but France is the best by far. I'm actually going to France this Saturday to Monaco to do like a community initiative thing to, you know, help kids and stuff like that. So yeah.
All right, what's your craziest basketball story? What's your craziest overseas basketball story?
Man, Well, one time, man, I was in Tel Aviv. It was after a practice or something like that. And after I went to Tel Aviv, and, you know, you got the whole Palestine-Israeli war going on. And then all of a sudden you're hearing sirens and everybody ducking down and this, that, and the other. And then I'm looking up and I'm just seeing missiles colliding. Boom, boom, boom. And then everybody like, man, and I'm just walking. And I'm like, you know, and somebody come up to me, they're like, how come you didn't hide or nothing like that? And I was just like, man, at the end of the day, I grew up in Michigan, man, so it don't even something gonna happen. You know? And then, yeah, I can say that's honestly away from that's my craziest story by far. Because every time I tell that story, people are like, what?
What? You weren't ducking into a building trying to get down into a basement?
Nah, man, because it's a missile at the end of the day, and then, you know, that radius when it hit the ground, it's over. So, and I was at the beach anyway, so I was like, you know what, I can't escape if I'm running in sand, so I'm out there just relax.
There's nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to hide.
Exactly.
Digging yourself a hole in the sand.
Right, jumping in the water. And so I was just like, all right, you know, let me drink this Matai, you know, and just relax.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. All right, so as your playing career is winding down, and you've obviously had these experiences during the time you're playing, when when do you formalize the idea of the process basketball and think, okay, I've been doing these things concurrently with my playing career, but now I'm ready to step up and do it on a larger scale? What was the original mission, and when did that idea come to you, and when did you formalize it?
Well, I was in Australia at the time, and I was playing out there, and I was in the middle of my season, and it really wasn't going too well, not just with me, but the team in general. But the reason why it wasn't is because of development. We was practicing like 2 times a week. The coaches really weren't engaged, and you could just see it was just nobody was really into the basketball. So I was like, man, and nobody could really play, and nobody was teaching the younger players how to play. And I just took a step back. I took my ego out the equation, and I was just like, you know what? Let me teach some of these guys. Let me talk to these guys. Let me see what they think. And then then I came up, I got my master's in business and stuff like that. So I just started conceptualizing and coming up with marketing schemes and this, that, and the other, how I could create my logo, how it would appeal to people while I was there. Because you're playing basketball, you got all that time in your hands and stuff like that. And I just created the logo. I just created the site. I just did everything, start using my network, start bringing players together. And then after that season, I called all my basketball friends, and I was like, look, I'm going to stop hooping. I'm going to rent out a mansion. Let's all stay in this mansion. Let's just train all summer and document the experience. And that was the real initial beginning of the process basketball. That first year was one of the best years because some of the people who I was there with, it was just so cool. You know what I'm saying? It was such a vibe. And I was training everybody. We was having fun. And then after it started creating a buzz because I wasn't putting it on social media. I wasn't trying to show it off. But it created a buzz about this guy who training players and just keeping it private, some Fight Club stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I had players from all over the world come.
Was that an intentional strategy, and why?
Yeah, that was definitely an intentional strategy because at that time the monetization started kicking in with basketball trainers and stuff like that. Everybody jumping to this NBA player, everybody doing, everybody trying to get the clip to go viral and everything like that. So I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna take the opposite route because for me, I'm about quality than quantity. You know what I'm saying? I don't want every customer. I want the best customer within what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, if I learned something from my stepfather, I learned about quality. And what he was doing in terms of that world, if I learned something from that, I learned about quality and I learned how to get a product off. And you make that product the best product you can possibly be. And that's what I did. I made that product an exclusive product. And that's what the process basketball was. And that was a real strategy. And that's how I really took off. That's why players, they hit me up, or agencies like Rock Nation or whatever, contacted me about their specific players. Because in every year, it just pivoted more and more, especially going towards humanitarian stuff and philanthropy. Because with these players, it became more than just training. And it was like, okay, how can I help these players improve off the court? How can I make that status of a player, make them better as a person for the NBA to say, okay, this is a good guy. This is a guy we need on our team, and it just took off from there. Like it really did.
Was that part of the original vision when you're in the mansion that first year and putting things together? Is that philanthropy aspect, was that part of the original vision, or was that something that as you got to know the players and as you started thinking about what it is that you wanted to do long term, that it came in? How did you go about thinking through that piece of the training and building that into what you wanted to do as you worked with players?
Right. The philanthropy was the first one I did. It was in Phoenix, and the philanthropy was always there for me. And then when the player, after we play, or let's say they go party, I'll wake them up and say, I do water drives there every summer. And I'll wake them up and I say, hey, let's go do this. And then when you see the players actually giving back, you can see how they feel. You know what I'm saying? Now they starting to see, we got the opportunity to use our platform to actually help people. You know what I'm saying? And once I started seeing that, especially after that first one, I was like, I need to turn this philanthropy up even more because I already understood that I was a world-class trainer. Like I didn't need other people to certify me as that. And now, I'm getting that certification amongst my peers and stuff like that, but I already knew that. But that philanthropy aspect of it, I was already doing it anyway throughout the years in Australia and all these places. But once I got other players involved, they started to understand how they could use, they started to see how their platforms actually help people. And then I just pushed it more, and I pushed it more with gunfight, with with gun violence awareness in Michigan, or like now I'm one of the leaders in gender equality with basketball in Europe, or like just so many other what I spoke about earlier. I did a project with the United States government. This whole thing with Russia and Ukraine is going on. I've been working with Russian communities in Estonia for the last 3 years. With peace talks with the United States government, using that and I did it with the Estonian national team, with some of their players. And I've been pushing this initiative of philanthropy and how using basketball as a platform can really help people. And even with LeBron James, he had his More Than an Athlete campaign out in Paris. I was the follow-up coach behind that, you know what I'm saying? And it was at Nike Pigalle. And me and him are one of the few coaches that ever do a camp at this specific park. It's like a hidden jewel in Paris. And I started to see that I was getting more of a reception through my philanthropy work than actually training. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, and it just
set you apart, right? You apart.
It set me apart. Right, exactly.
Tell us a little bit more about the gun violence initiative in Michigan, exactly what your role is and what you envision, how you're able to help, and what it actually entails.
Well, I've been away from home for so long, and one day I just went back. And one of my buddies, he has a company in Michigan called All In, and he's really, we partners now, and he runs the whole domestic stuff, but he really in the field, like he really out there helping kids. He really out there giving kids chances to go to college and put them in different high schools and stuff like that to really help them out. And he my man, we tight. So I was seeing what he was doing, and we had the same synergy. I'm just doing it internationally. So I'm like, okay, if I'm developing all these players on the court and off the court, I think it's time for me to come back home and do the same. And in Grand Rapids specifically, it's a huge gun violence problem. So me and him, we put together we have an annual gun violence basketball camp. And we bring kids. We go in the hood. We go to Martin Luther King Park. It's in the southeast side of Grand Rapids. We bring kids out there and we hoop. And that week we did it. It was no shootings that whole week. You know what I'm saying? I guess because of my past respect or whatever the case may be, but his respect also. People just showed us love because wasn't nobody else doing it like that. And now his company is really because we partners, and I gave him a lot of my resources and stuff like that. His company is really taking off in Michigan, and I just had a phone call this morning actually with the vice president of the Grand Rapids Gold, the G League team out there, and now we're discussing a partnership that we can do to not only develop their players but also, add more philanthropy to the city, and it's just time. I did everything I could around the world. Now it's time to just get back home.
When you're meeting with players and you're considering bringing somebody into the fold, what's the discussion like? Obviously, there's a basketball piece of it that the player's concerned about, but from your perspective, you start thinking about what philanthropy can we get the player involved with? What do those conversations look like? Is it something that the player brings you an idea, you bring an idea to the player? Is it a mutual conversation? Just what does that process look like?
Well, every player is different, and a lot of times the issues are just based on their demographic. So like, for example, in Australia, the South Sudan community, they have a lot of, sometimes it's a lot of racism, especially when it comes to their community and stuff like that. And sometimes they weren't getting, in the past, they weren't getting proper opportunities and stuff like that. So when I went out there, I would just, because of my status already as a trainer, when I went out there, I would just do free camps for them. You know what I'm saying? So it will automatically raise the status of players just because they attended my camp. So people got to take them serious. Let's say in Europe, there's a gender equality and inequality, especially with, pay and everything like that. Like people not putting enough emphasis on women's basketball, especially some cultural things. Sometimes, it's a lot of different things. But Khalees Lloyd, she played for the Swedish national team, and she plays in France now. We are putting together a big initiative to really help women and girls with basketball and stuff like that. James Young, he's from Michigan, France. I've been out there for so long. We've been doing that initiative. Estonia, every time I've been there, I've been going there every year. I connect with the Russian communities out there, especially with what's going on now. Israel, I try to promote peace out there, especially what's going on out there. And it just really revolves around the demographic of the player. I give players an opportunity to be human and to actually tell how they feel. And that's why I have such deep relationships with every player. They don't have to be a basketball player around me. You know what I'm saying? They could be themselves. And it just so happened to play basketball. And it works, man. It really works. We got a couple things coming up in Japan, Africa. Where else? I'm in Panama right now. I brought all my players out here last summer because we was challenging homelessness, and then we got to play against their national team, and that was considered one of the biggest events in Panama, period. And that's how it works,
Are you bringing not only attention? Are you bringing funding? Are you bringing? Obviously, you're bringing basketball to youth players in the communities where you go and visit, and then your events cycle around that. But when you think about what it is that you want to bring to the table in a particular situation, I know it's different for each country and each event that you do, and they don't all fit exactly the same formula. But just when you think about the type of impact that you're trying to make in a particular community, how do you approach that in terms of having an effect on the issues that are affecting that particular community?
Right. I bring awareness because a lot of times, pretty much 100% of the time, I'm paying for it myself. You know what I'm saying? That's how much I really believe in this stuff. And to see these kids and the impact on these kids or players, it's worth the buck. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times I just pay for it myself, but the awareness that it brings to the table, it just opens people's eyes up. I do work on trying to connect with sponsors and stuff like that. When I was in France, I was with Nike, and that helped a lot. Since I've been in Panama, and after that with Israel and all these other countries, I do it myself. And it has brought so much awareness to the point where, I got ESPN correspondents giving me interviews and stuff. Or, I'm getting MSN articles, or even I got nominated for the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going after it all. I hope I get me a Nobel Peace Prize pretty soon. And I just feel like I want to bring enough awareness to all these social issues to show that basketball can be a cure. It can be a help. You know what I'm saying? Basketball can bring anybody together, whatever race, creed, color, whatever the case may be, because it always goes back to my origin. The situations that I could have been in could have been hectic, but if I survived those through the sport of basketball, I think if I can translate that energy to so many different people around the world, it can help them with whatever their issue is.
Using the game of basketball to have an impact on kids. I think that a lot of the coaches that we talk to, Tremaine, talk about being able to have an impact on the players that they coach. And you're doing that same thing. You're doing it in a different way from somebody who's a high school coach or who's a college coach. But when you think about what you've been able to do, and you think about the kids you've been able to work with in all these different locations around the world, can you point to maybe a particular story, maybe one kid that shared something with you in a particular event that just had an impact on you that is still with you when you think about, hey, when I'm considering what it is that I'm doing day in and day out, I can go back to this story and realize, hey, I really am having an impact. Is there one conversation, story, kid that you remember that kind of fits that description of somebody that really brought home to light what it is that you're doing, the impact that you're having?
Yeah, I actually got two.
Great.
One, I got a kid named Adonis Arms. He just graduated from Texas Tech. They made it to the Sweet 16. And I've been working with him for the last 3 years. I was having my process sessions out. He's from Phoenix, and I had my second one there as well. And his mom just brought him to my session. I guess through the grapevine, people was hearing about it, and then she was just like, he couldn't afford it. So I was like, all right, let me see him play. And at the time, he was in junior college, and he came. He gave his heart out, and I had the Cavs there too. They was watching a little bit. He gave his heart out, and then he just went all out. And I pulled him to the side, and I said, look, you don't have to give me a dime. Like, I see your energy. I see how hard you're going. I'm gonna help you out for the rest of your career. And then over the years, I flew him up to. No, he came up to Paris, and he was also a part of that LeBron James program and stuff. And then he was training with me. He was training with the different European pros and stuff like that. And then he just kept giving his all. He kept giving his all. He kept giving his all. And then when we came back to Phoenix, I met up with his mom and his sister and stuff. And they was just like, man, like you a blessing to our son. Like, why are you helping us out? Like, why? Like, what's going on? And I was just like, man, your son is a good kid. Like, he's just a good kid. Like, you know, he really believes in himself. And at the end of the day, like, he just wants his family to, you know, he want to take care of his family. It's not this whole basketball status. I think I'm better than everybody and stuff like that. Like, a kid, he's just a good kid. And he ended up playing at Division II, and he went to Winthrop, and then he finished out his career at Texas Tech. So at all these schools, he elevated. He's not going backwards. He's not even transferring to, like, transfer out of a school because it's not working out. Because at all these schools, he did well. At Division II, he was an All-American. At Winthrop, he helped him get to the national tournament. And at Texas Tech, where he just finished out his career, he helped him get to the Sweet 16. And now he's about to go to the NBA. You know, and we still talk now. I might be training him this summer if I get a chance to go to Arizona. And him and his family, like, man, they hit me up all the time. They just like, thank you. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's the type of just impact that I try to bring individually to players.
Absolutely.
The next example is here in Panama. I took all my players out to the jungle in the middle of nowhere in Panama. You know, and they shook, like they scared. They like, where we at? You know what I'm saying? And the next thing you know, 200 kids running there screaming, ah! You know, because they never even seen this level of players before. I mean, these players dunking, you know, they doing, you know, I got a player named Tijan Kaida. He played for the Suns. And, you know, he like 7 feet. So they never even seen nobody like that before. Another guy named Elijah, he plays out in Slovakia or somewhere. He athletic like Westbrook. You know what I'm saying? And it's just these players, these kids never seen these players before, and they couldn't speak English. They couldn't do, and they just the energy that it was given just to have this opportunity was just once in a lifetime, and those are just the type of experiences that keeps me going. You know?
Absolutely, I think when you have that impact, and especially when you get feedback from the people that you work with, and you know that you're able to make a difference in their life, both on and off the basketball floor, clearly that's been a part of your mission from day one. Let's talk a little bit. We've talked a lot about the philanthropy side of it. Let's talk a little bit about the basketball side of it from a training standpoint. When you think about what makes you a great trainer, you already talked about the ability to instill that killer instinct. What is it about what you do with your players that you feel like makes you so successful, that you've been able to build this word of mouth business without some of the social media and things that a lot of other trainers have used to grow their business? What is it that you do on the floor with your players that helps them to get better? Because ultimately, as a trainer, you want to help your players get better in game. So what you're doing with them has to translate into improved play on the floor. So what is it that you do that you feel like helps them to do that? I know we could probably go through a million things, but just give me a couple of things that you think are key.
No, it's pretty simple for me, man. It's quality and efficiency. Like, and I don't waste time. I don't need a whole year to get a player right. All I need is a week. You know what I'm saying? Like Matthias, for example, he was playing for Maccabi Tel Aviv. He plays for the French national team, Matthias Lazor. And he only had a 2-month contract. And I flew out to France, and we actually linked up just on a random. And, when I train these players, I get the whole Kevin Hart treatment. You know, I get the stadiums, I get all, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we just had our conversation about philanthropy, but, like, let's talk about the meat. And I get the whole Kevin Hart treatment. I get everything I need to really get these players right. But I really push that efficiency, and I really push that quality. And we trained for about a week, and then he ended up signing with one of the biggest teams in, I think, Serbia, yeah. And he was drafted by Philly, too. And I just get right to it. Like, what are you going to do to get this bucket? How are you going to get this bucket? What are your spots? You know what I'm saying? And we just practice on the spots repetitively over and over and over again. How can we capitalize on these moments? You know what I'm saying? And he's a big, but I taught him how to play the 3. So it just opened up a whole new world in basketball for him, especially with his explosiveness. Or James Young, for example, when he came out of Kentucky and he got drafted by Boston. You know, they see him as a shooter, but he was playing for Maccabi Haifa at the time. Now he plays for Hapoel Tel Aviv. And we was working on defense. We was working off coming off screens to get a shot off, and a lot of isolation moves, 3 dribble max to get a shot off because he already big. And basically the result, and what really through word of mouth is the results. Like at the end of the day, James Young's career, he ended up, because of what his past, people felt like he never was going to make it to the league. But after we trained, he ended up leading the Israeli league in scoring. I trained him for a month. He ended up leading the Israeli league in scoring, and then he ended up signing with the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? And Matthias, for example, he was already on that path, but he ended up signing with the biggest team in Serbia. Another kid named David Michinu, he plays for the French national team. I got him prepared for the NBA Summer League, and he dominated in that. Khalees Lloyd, I got her prepared for the Olympic qualifiers. She did really well on that. The list goes on and on and on, including Adonis, who did really good at Texas Tech. And I just get right to it, man. There's no gimmicks. All we need is a rim. All we need is one ball. I teach them how to analyze defenses, especially in isolation situations. I teach them different angles to control help side and stuff like that, and they just use it. It's simple math. It's just angles and critical thinking, and just really focusing on what your sweet spots are and just being efficient.
How do you utilize film and looking at a player's film and analyzing what they do, and then helping them to see, hey, here's where you maybe have some deficiencies, or here's what things that are your strong suits right now. Let's build on those, and let's continue to work on some of these things that, as you said, maybe you're an inside player. Now you're going to step out on the perimeter, be able to do some things out there. Just how do you go about using film and analyzing your players when they first come to you and getting a feel for what they can and can't do?
Well, it depends on the mission. So like James, for example, I was out there with him for a month. So I was working with the staff, like the whole staff, the coaching staff and everything.
Gotcha.
Because I'm one of the few coaches who can get mid-season trainings as well. So like a team will call me, and I'll fly out there and I'll help that superstar improve right then and there. So it'll be me, the coaching staff. We'll sit down, we'll analyze film, we'll come up with different play sets, do whatever the case in order for that player to maximize whatever they need them to do, and then they have that success. But like, let's say Matthias, we only had a week. So it's like, all right, let's play one-on-one. Let's see what you can do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
instant analysis, right?
Yeah, instantly. Like, all right, let me see what your weaknesses are. Because at the end of the day, I'm a coach. I'm not a player anymore. So if I'm able to steal the ball from you, or if I'm able to score on you, there are those weaknesses. And then, we'll get some full court action in, and I'll see the holes that's missing within that as well. You know what I'm saying? So I just, like I said, I'm a chameleon. I adapt to the circumstances. And, I just got that success rate, man. I believe in my product, and it's been working,
Absolutely. I think when you can point to the success that your players have had, ultimately that's the true judge. Like I've said a few times, if you are a trainer and you can get results for your players in game, it has to translate. If you're just getting them good at drills, be good, right? They have to be able to compete and put that product out on the floor. And then once you do that, now guys see, hey, if I work with Tremaine, I know I'm going to see results, not just when I'm working with him for my hour and a half or my week or my month or whatever it is. That's going to translate into my game, which ultimately is going to help me to make more money, have a longer career, and be a better basketball player. So when you think about what you've been able to do from that standpoint and helping players to improve, how have you also used your business connections to help them deal overseas or move up a league or get to maybe a different country that has a higher level of pay? How have you used your connections to help players in that area? Is that something that you do as well?
It depends. Like, I know a lot of times when people hear about players working with the process basketball, what I'm doing, they know that they're getting proper training. So sometimes agencies, they'll call me about players and ask, how they're doing, like what they're doing, and actually sometimes, boost their money up, or whatever the case may be. Because, I feel like I'm the Harvard of basketball training. If you go to Harvard, you can get any job you want.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
And that's the way I feel. And a lot of my top players, when I train these people in different agencies, they hear about it, they contact me and they say, hey, like, we know you're doing a good job with this person. So how is this person on the court? How is this person off the court? That's what differentiates me from, I believe, so many other people. Not to take nothing away from, everybody got their style. Basketball to me is like martial arts. Everybody got their style, but this is just my style. You know what I'm saying? And I just believe in my style so much. And sometimes people take it as cockiness, but for me, I'm just confident in what I do. Some people take it as arrogance or whatever, but I just believe in what I do, and I give that same, if we want to call it arrogance to my players. And that's why they dominate. Like, at the end of the day, basketball is about ego. Basketball is competitive. And that's, I made my business around the energy that was Kobe Bryant, And you got to take people's head off, you know what I'm saying? Because these people are feeding their families with this basketball. So, when it comes to that, agencies or coaches or whoever, they know that I'm giving that energy to these players. They know that I'm giving that, just that truth. I hold players accountable. The whole thing. Like, if you miss a layup in one of our practices, you run into suicide. I don't care what level you play at. You know what I'm saying? Like, or I cut a practice short. I don't care how much money you pay. And coaches and agencies know that, and they connect with me when they ask about different players and stuff.
When you have that reputation, you build that over the course of time, then the people that are reaching out to you they know what they're getting. And it's not a surprise when they get one of your clients. They know what that player has been shown. They get to know you. They trust you. And as a result, there's this belief that, hey, if a player's been working with Tremaine, we know what we're getting. We know what this player is going to be capable of doing. We know that they've been coached in the right way. And that's really a big part of it, is making sure that you're able to have that reputation so that the players can come in. They trust you, you trust them, and then it just continues to cycle through. And that's when you end up having that kind of success and building the business, as you said, through word of mouth, not through the self-promotion on social media. You've been able to do it through sort of the back channels of, hey, guys talking to one another and knowing that it's being done right. When you talk about the opportunities that you've had to go all around the world and work in different countries, and you talked about working in Russia and Estonia, you're talking about working in Panama, you've worked in France, all the different places that you've been able to go and have an impact. How do you think about identifying where you want to go next? How do those opportunities come to you? Is that through individual relationships that you've built, or is it through you sort of looking around and identifying, hey, here's an area where I think I can have an impact, or here's a great location where we can have a youth camp and have an impact on the kids? You talked about working with Syrian refugees coming up here in the future. So just how do you identify those places that you think are going to be great places for you to be able to do what you do?
Well, a lot of times it just happens on a random. I'm going to tell you the truth. Sometimes I do my research, or sometimes I do projects with the American government and stuff like that. But like coming out to Panama, I just came out here for vacation. That's the truth, man. I came out here for vacation. I liked it. And I was like, you know what? Let me holler at some of the national team players while I'm here. And then I talked to some of them. They told me some of the issues and problems that was here. And that last summer, I was actually going to do my Fight Club process session in Paris. And I just changed it right then and there. I got a resort for all the players, and we trained here. And it just turned out so good, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it just happens on a random. But I won't say it's like organized confusion at the end of the day because of my network. So my network, I got an extensive network all around the world. So wherever I go, I know somebody. Somebody has a problem, somebody has an issue, somebody has a player that needs some sort of help. So I can go literally anywhere, any country. And especially when somebody finds out that I'm there, eventually somebody's going to contact me and say, hey, can you come help me out with this? Hey, can we do this project? Hey, can we, and I'm a chill guy. So I'm like, all right, why not?
It's nice that your reputation precedes you, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I leave lasting impressions beyond just the sport of basketball, but with the country itself. I'm in the streets. Like when I go to Paris, I'm going to all the parks. When I'm in Tel Aviv, I'm going to all the parks. When I'm in Arizona, I'm going to all the, even in Panama, like I go out and I hoop. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you got everybody from the street ball players all the way to the pros. Everybody know who I am. You know what I'm saying? And I have some of my best friends are around the world who are involved in these industries. So I can just go anywhere, man. And, sometimes I feel like I'm lazy, because I could really push it and monetize it and I could do that whole thing. But, I wake up and I'm happy and I'm me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just I'm in a very, very blessed situation. Let me say it like that.
All right. So I want to ask two things. One, quickly tell me a little bit about your logo. And then I want to follow up on what you just said about feeling like you're lazy and thinking about what it is that you're going to do next. So first, talk about the logo. How'd you come up with the logo? It's very unique, obviously, But tell people a little bit about it. They'll be able to see it once we get the episode up, and they'll be able to see it in the show notes. But just tell people a little bit about how you came up with it.
Well, I was thinking ahead. I like the process. The process basketball, at the end of the day, all this, the process, it's a development to get to where point A to point B. That's where I came up with the process basketball. I was doing this way before Embiid. You know what I'm saying? Everything is a process. Whether you want to be a mathematician, whether you want to be a scientist, whether you want to be an artist in basketball, everything is a process. The actual Chinese symbol says the process in Mandarin, because that's the market that I want to hit next. China. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the biggest markets in the world. So if I'm already doing well in the Middle East, Europe, Australia, I'm starting to do a little bit in the United States, Central South America, I believe China is the next market that I need to hit. And what better way to connect with people by, basically honoring whatever their culture is. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's how I really came up with that logo.
When you think about where you are right now today, and you think about where you want to take this thing, what's the vision moving forward? If you were to look ahead 3 to 5 years out, what do you hope the process basketball looks like at that point?
I honestly couldn't even tell you, man. Because I'm just me, man. It's like when I played basketball, right? I never looked at who that player was, right? I never looked at the scouting report. I didn't even watch film. I didn't care about none of that stuff. I just went out there and hooped, because they're human just like me. So even in the future, it's the same. As long as I do what I'm supposed to do, I don't even have to worry about the future at all. And I believe that's why I'm here. Because sometimes thinking too far ahead, it's one thing to, think ahead and believe and know what you're going to do, but it's another thing to try to create plans, and try to have some sort of anticipation or create some expectation, because when that a lot of times when people have certain expectations, when they fail, they don't know what else to do. I live in the moment. Don't get me wrong, I do plan ahead. I do actually, do business. But
it's hard to run a business if you don't plan a little, right?
Yeah. I actually do the business side of things, but when it comes to where I want it to go, I let it develop itself, because I never thought in a million years I would be doing philanthropy at this level. I just let it. Once the pivot comes, then I start to think ahead. You know what I'm saying? So, but I got so many areas. For example, I got a comic book. I got an animated, that's doing really well right now. And I hope it might end up getting picked up in Japan somewhere. And, we got gear and everything. I never thought that I would have my own comic book. You know what I'm saying? Or I got a tutorial in 8 different languages. Or I'm a well-known street ball player in Paris, but I'm also training some of the biggest players there. And there's so many different lanes in the process basketball that goes into that horizontal thinking that I can't even think that far ahead, because I'm already 10 years ahead with what I'm doing anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's already there. You know what I'm saying? My first tutorial I did in France is considered a classic. It was one of the biggest tutorials in all French-speaking countries. And I was just on a random. You know what I'm saying? I did it with a YouTuber and it just popped off. Now the second one is in 8 different languages and it's starting to move. And you can connect with everybody. It's a way, that specific tutorial is a way to really bring communities together, in all aspects through basketball. And that comic book is the same way. It's basically to teach basketball players to be young basketball players, kids and stuff, to be basketball superheroes. It's like videos of all my one-on-one when I'm cooking everybody and stuff. But it's more, I had a big interview in Japan about it. And it's just, I never thought that I would have had those things. I think that if I was thinking too hard about a specific goal, I would put too much pressure on myself. Whereas I let just things materialize, and then I plan within that materialization, and then I let it grow from there.
What's the most fun part of what's something that, when you think about what you do to sustain your business, what's a piece of it that you really enjoy doing, whether that's maybe the tech side with the web? Is it just the financial numbers? Is it the organization logistics? What is it about the business side of what you do that you really enjoy?
Just waking up and being able to manifest whatever I want to manifest. I'm building a facility here in Panama, and it's basically, I'm trying to create a world-class facility for the people here, because they don't really have too many world-class facilities at all for players to play. And I'm trying to put it together for these players, because it's a huge potential out here, but nobody's tapping into it. And in my building, it was an empty gym that nobody used. So the people, they found out I was this world-class coach, and they just gave me the gym. So I always wanted a gym. Don't get me wrong, I got gyms everywhere, all over the world where, because of my partners and stuff, so I can go to any gym I want, or I can go to any stadium. But to have my own, that's just a beautiful thing in itself. And I just manifested that on the fly. So that's really my favorite part, because, I'm not rich, I'm not a billionaire or nothing like that. But, I'm in a position where it has its ups and downs. You know how entrepreneurship is. But I'm just in a position where I'm able to manifest what I want with this basketball, and just to not only give myself opportunities, but others as well. And that's just really my favorite part.
I love it, man. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Before we get out, I want to give you a chance to share how people can connect with you, find out more about you, share whatever website, social media, whatever that you feel like people can connect with you, email, whatever you feel comfortable. How can people find out more about what you're doing? And then after we do that, I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Okay, definitely. You can check me out at theprocessbasketball.org or on Instagram at theprocess_basketball. And that's pretty much it, man. I'm chill when it comes to all this stuff.
It's funny. It's funny because as with the podcast, you're always we're always kind of throwing stuff up against the wall, trying to figure out, hey, what works on social media, what doesn't work, and it's definitely something that you have to. There's a learning curve to it, and you got to figure out what can help you to get the word out about what you're doing. And I know that you and I talked beforehand that for a long time you were building it underground, so to speak,
right.
And now you're starting to bring it out, to bring the light to it, and it's exciting that we're able to be a part of that. And again, we appreciate your time. It really means a lot that you took the time out of your schedule to jump on with us, and I can't thank you enough for that.
And I appreciate you too, because this was very short notice. It just happened today.
Yep, we got it done.
But we made it work.
Yeah, we got it done.
Right. And it's the vibe, man.
That's right.
That's really my network in general, man. It's the vibe. So anybody can approach me, especially when it comes to business. And a lot of times it works just because of the vibe. Like, you can read somebody in 5 seconds. If, what I'm saying?
So true. So true.
Yeah, it's really simple. So, I'm just in a blessed situation where I never really needed social media like that. And now it is my coming out party. Now it is for me to start connecting with brands and investors and sponsors and stuff like that. Especially since, I'm not working with Nike Europe anymore. So it's just that time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that time.
Absolutely. Great stuff tonight, Tremaine. Can't thank you enough again, like I said, for jumping out with us. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.